Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here, and for anybody online, hopefully you can all hear me out there. So the format for tonight, I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Rose Douglas. I'm the Assistant Fire Chief here. And Chief Borland is going to give a short presentation that might answer some of your questions. After that, we'll do a Q&A. And so if we didn't answer any questions, certainly the time for everybody to ask. We are streaming to Facebook and to our YouTube channel as well. And so we're going to open up, if you're online, you can go ahead and put questions in the chats, and then the format will go to make sure we have time for questions here as well as online, as we'll take a question in person and then we'll go to one question online and just kind of go back and forth. So with that, if you give me a second to share your presentation, and then
So
it is up there. And it should be coming across online.
hopefully I won't get ahead of myself in the slide.
Okay.
Ready? We're all lined up and everything?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, folks, for coming out tonight. I'm Dale Borland, as Rose said, Fire Chief for Lane Fire Authority. We also have some staff here tonight. Diane Holmes, a Deputy Fire Marshal and our Public Information Officer, or PIO. We have a couple board members in the room this evening. I'm gonna call them out. Kurt Wilson, one of my board of directors, one of my bosses, lives out in our South Battalion area. And then Mark Boren back here, also one of my board members, lives right here in downtown Bonita. So, and then we have the duty crews here tonight. This is the crew that's on staff at the station this evening. John Jasper, Shift Lieutenant, Matt Seckler, he's the engineer on shift, and then volunteer, fantastic volunteer, Katie Garcia. Katie is also a volunteer engineer with the Lake Fire Authority and been here for, how many years you been here now, Katie?
Since 2012.
Yeah, been a while. Thank you. All right, so we'll get started tonight. And next slide, please. Nice. So just a little bit about who we are. We're Lane Fire Authority. We provide fire suppression and emergency medical services and life safety services to about 31,000 people here in our district, or 282 square miles. We have a pretty significant coverage area we cover. We are what they call a combination fire district. It's a common term in the fire service. Combination means we are made up of both paid staff and volunteer staff. If we were all paid staff, we'd be what they call an all-career department. But we are a combination department and very proud of that. We have a team of about 66 members and responded to 7,304 calls for service in 2025. So that includes both district and our ambulance service as well. Next. Services, how we are funded. Our funding comes from property taxes. That's our main funding. And as folks are here tonight, our board has thrown the ballot measure for levy renewal back on the May ballot. And that is the lion's share of our revenues. We do charge for ambulance transport. And so the end user that uses an ambulance does pay a transport fee. They pay it, their insurance pays it. And then also we have a lot of fire med customers, which is a subscription program we have. Anybody here at Fire Med? Yeah, Fire Med's great. It's a annual fee. I can't even remember what our ground is now, 85 bucks for a ground ambulance membership. And then you will never get a bill if you're a fireman. So great program. We'll bill your insurance, but you personally will never get a bill. And then of course, we're always seeking out grants and any other special funding we can find. We've got many AFG grants in the past. Right after the CARES Act came out, we did get some funding through legislature, helped us with some ambulances and equipment. But that's all of our funding right there. We run off of the property tax that comes from our taxpayers within our fire district. That is it. We are not part of the city. We're not part of the county, federal, state, none of that. So every dollar a taxpayer pays in to the fire district, whether it's through the base mill rate, of assessed value or through the levy, every dollar or penny of that money goes right back into the service right here in the community of where they live. So I think that's kind of a special thing. As I said, not part of a city or county. And then we have to go through an annual public budget review process, and then we have to go through a state audit process as well. Pretty significant undertaking. And we have to turn that in annually to the Department of Revenue, and we always pass our audits every year. Well, the books balance, the money's going where it's supposed to, all those things. Y measure 20-378 is on the May ballot. Our current levy, you folks, thank you very much, passed it in 2021. First operating levy this district has ever had. We've always just been able to survive on the base mill rate. Over the years, call volumes have increased, the price of goods go up, the cost of personnel increases, all those things. And we were forced to finally go out to our taxpayers and ask for something above our base mill rate. So we did that. We were successful in 2021. We passed a levy for 35 cents, and that levy is expiring June 30th of this year. So we have realized the last of the tax dollars we're going to get from that 35-cent levy, and then it ends. They are 5 years at max, and we've reached the end of it. So our board is throwing it back on the ballot. We're going out. We're asking to renew the current levy, and then also asking to increase it by 20 cents. So asking the voters to approve an operations levy at 55 cents per thousand assessed property value. Without it, our rising demand and cost just continue to outpace. It is amazing. It seems like from the time we went pre-COVID till after COVID, the price of equipment, you name it, our cost of goods, apparatus maintenance, all those things have just accelerated. As I see on a daily basis, this is a citizen here in the district. The cost of buying groceries, the cost of buying fuel, all those things. I live right here on the edge of city, off Oak Island over here, and I'm a taxpayer just like everybody else. I get it. But our demand keeps going up and our call volumes keep increasing. Our call volumes increased 24% since 2020. The majority of our calls are EMS based. About 80% of our calls we run are all EMS, emergency medical service. Our cost of almost got a dizzy spell there. Cost to provide services, I said, just continues to increase, and our current revenue has not kept pace with that. Go ahead. Examples of cost increases. More calls mean added cost. Ambulance licensing fees have went up 220%. Our overtime has went up. We have a 24/7 operation. I was talking with this nice lady before we started. We have 3 stations in this district. We have a total of 15. 3 of those have staff 24/7. And that is this station here, our Franklin station. If anybody's familiar, Territorial Road going to Junction City, right there where Franklin Road takes off, we have a 24/7, 365 ambulance at that station that responds in our district, in our ambulance service area. So they are fully paid. And then our Irving station, if anybody's familiar with Northwest Expressway, Prairie Road, and then 4-Star Beat down there by Northwest Hardwoods, our other kind of main station is right behind 4-Star back there. And we also have paid staff at that station. So all of our costs go up. I talked about that. We've all seen it as taxpayers. Costs just continue to go up. Fuel is atrocious right now for us. In our units, especially our medics, we put on a lot of miles. We burn a lot of diesel. We do a lot of maintenance. We change oil in our ambulances like every 3,000, right, Bill? 3,000? About every 3,000.
Every 6,000.
Oh, 6,000 now. So every 6,000. But we've had times where we've changed oil 3 and 4 times a month in those medic units. So they're keeping the road hot. Good. So our costs to provide our emergency service are now higher than the amount of revenue we're collecting. And so we find ourselves in this crux, this what we feel is a tight spot in being able to sustain our operation. And we have to go out and ask our taxpayers for an increase on top of that levy. We did save a little bit of money. We did some things with 35 cents, working towards some goals here in the district. We did save up some money out of that. And then we just exhausted that money we saved to the tune of about a little over $800,000. We had to buy, I talked about how much our ambulances run. We've got to be buying a new ambulance at least every other year, if not every year, because they get high mileage so quick. And then they become, we start having mechanical issues, all those. And so we just spent that money on 2 brand new ambulances just to meet the need of our community and our ambulance service area. How our costs are managed. We constantly share resources with neighboring agencies through mutual aid, auto aid, all those things. We kind of look at Lane Fire Authority. We've got a huge district, but there's districts all around us. And so they are no different than us. Everybody's got lots of calls to get to, and sometimes you're just really busy and you need a hand. And so we're all about helping the neighbors when we can, and they come help us when we need a hand. So current service adjustments that are impacting daily operations. We're down 6 positions right now. That was kind of a thing that spawned out of, we went out in the November election and we failed with the levy in that election. And so given that, and that we were going to expire June 30th this year, we had a couple of retirements. We had a couple of folks that took jobs elsewhere. They were trying to get to Bend or something like that, or like to work for Eugene Springfield. And we opted to just kind of pull back and not fill those positions right now, which money we're not spending right now will carry with us into the new budget year. So we opted not to do that. And I think a lot of that was just kind of our agency philosophy. So philosophically, we didn't want to hire a brand new employee here at the first of the year, only to possibly or potentially fail our May election and lose our entire levy, and then have to turn right around and lay off a brand new employee. We don't feel that's fair. I've always had the philosophy here that if someone comes to work here, young person gets their career job here, the firefighter, EMT, paramedic, whatever, that we maintain the stablest operation we can. They get a job here, I expect to see them retire out of here because our service, our job's never going away. And so we want to keep our operation stable. We don't want to just be running through employees like a mill. We've adjusted some of our response protocols lately. We're getting so busy. And I've said this before, I never thought I would see it in my career because you call 911, we go. Those days are waning. And so we have adjusted some of our response protocols. Smoke in the area check when it's not fire season, we're no longer responding to those. It's not fire season. There's not a big public safety threat there, so we're not going on those. And we get quite a few of those in the past. Crash detection from iPhone. Anything east of territorial, we don't go on it if it's east of territorial because they're very heavily populated areas. If somebody has ran in the ditch and their Apple Watch or their iPhone has set off crash detection, there's probably going to be somebody go by and see that. Well, usually when there's an accident, we'll get 1 call, we'll get 2 calls, we'll get 3 calls to 911. And then we know we're kind of assured, yes, this is definitely a wreck. Now, west of territorial, as we go more rural, we are still responding on crash detection calls or automated 911 calls from cell phones and watches. We're still responding on those because if you're way up Wolf Creek Road and you run over the bank and it sets off your crash detection and it auto calls 911, it could be hours before anybody ever drives by that again. So we're still responding on those out there. Some of the other things in the wintertime, down power lines in the district, unless there is a fire or it's laying on a car with people in it, there's no great public safety threat, we're not responding on those. If it involves a roadway, ultimately at the end of the day, it's either OSP or the job of the Lane County Sheriff's deputies to take care of that, and the power company, if it's power lines. And then right now, we're down positions. We've moved people around in the organization just to make sure our line positions are covered. And so right now we have taken the staff members we had in the training section, And they are now filling spots elsewhere in the organization to keep up with the pace of the call demand of the daily operation. So we should be running a spring academy for new volunteers right now, but we are not. We just don't have the staffing and the time to do it. We are constantly evaluating that. Given what direction we go after May 19th in the special election, we are constantly evaluating that and talking about different models. We can't stand to stop getting new volunteers in this organization. We can't stand that. We have to figure out a way, either way we go, if we fail or if we pass, we have got to figure out a way to keep having those recruit academies, bringing new folks into the organization. I started here in 1979 as a volunteer, 26 years as a volunteer before I got hired full time. So I think I'm approaching August will be 47 years, I think I've been doing it. We have got to have the constant turnover. Back in the days when I started, our average longevity of a volunteer was in the 12 to 13 year range, somewhere around there. And then a few even higher, like me, 26 years before I got hired. I think now probably our average longevity of a volunteer is probably more in the 4 to 5 year range. And that's probably on the high side. We see a lot of turnover of folks. We are a busy organization. We run a lot of calls, so it's great for new folks, young folks coming in, get the training, maybe get an EMS certification through Lane Community College under their belt. They pull shifts here as a volunteer. They get a lot of call volume. They get a lot of experience, and their goal is to get a job. And if we're not hiring, they're going to go find a job somewhere else. And that's just all part of the process. It's all part of that process and gets them, we train them the best we can to prepare them for this career for a lifetime. So we see a lot of turnover of volunteers in the organization. Talking about volunteers, taxpayer funds are maximized by applying for grants, as I talked about, sharing resources and utilizing volunteers. 2025, our volunteers here at Lane Fire Authority contributed the equivalent of 9.5 full-time staff in the year of 2025. That's huge. Replacing that work would cost approximately $1.9 million annually. So our volunteers are a saving grace for us here at Lane Fire Authority. As I said, we can't not be bringing new volunteers in and getting them trained and getting them online. Question we've got quite a bit back in November and up now leading into May. Does new development increase revenue? It does, ever so slightly, new development. So if we look at the growth versus demand of service, we would need 4,800 new homes to fund one engine company. And that's 3 people, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We need 4,800 new homes to fund that. That gives us 12,000 plus more residents and population growth, with on average, based on history, is probably about an additional 1,400 calls per year. So that's the kind of growth we see with the evolution of residential coming into our area. Do we have another slide? No, it's going to talk a little bit about that. So if we look at the Veneta area here, there's a lot of new housing coming into Veneta. We see a lot of new homes over here. I think the Oaks Orchard, Madrone Ridge, a lot of new homes coming in behind off of Jeans Road, across from Weimar, behind the vet's office, which is great. We love to see growth. Those new homes are coming in, new homes that may run, anywhere from $400,000 to $500,000 to $600,000. And then we get questions from folks, where you're getting all these new homes, that should be providing plenty of revenue for you to run them, because we're allowed to take 3% in growth each year on our assessed value. But if you take a $500,000 or $600,000 home, the assessed value of that new home is probably going to be in the $230,000 to $250,000 range is the assessed value of that home. And that was set statutorily back in the nineties. If anybody's heard of measures 5, 47, and 50, that capitated special districts on their base mill rate. And only allows, I think 37% of taxable value. I believe it is, something like that. So, basically, bunch of new homes come in. We are not realizing the revenue that some folks out there may think we do. It's not as high. So that growth it's growth, but it is much slower than what our costs are increasing. When we talk about big industry, if we look over in our Irving area, city of Eugene, talking about Amazon coming in around the airport, that's in our district. So that's great. Amazon's coming in, huge assessed value with that. We will realize nothing from that because it's within the urban growth boundary of the city of Eugene. That will be on the city's tax rolls, and we will get nothing for it. So,
Even though
anything
you're
we have-
responsible for coverage?
to a certain extent, yes. A facility that big, it is gonna be us, it's gonna be Eugene. It's gonna be a combination, but we have been responding to Eugene residential properties for years, I mean, for decades.
Sure.
Over in that area that we get no tax revenue
Mutually
for,
responsible.
but they're 3 blocks away from the fire station. It's in our district. We're the closest. We've always maintained that it is our job, it's our responsibility to get the taxpayer, the constituent, the closest, most appropriate service possible. And so we've always stuck with that premise. What about revenue from ambulance transport? I talked a little bit earlier about that. Ambulance billing helps cover the cost of individual calls, but not the full system. So if you think about that, and it is I think the ambulance system, not just here in Lane County, across the state, has been like this patchwork of knitting, putting it together over many, many, many years. So we have ambulances on duty 24/7. They may be sitting on the floor during the night. That comes out of our budget. Nobody's paying except our taxpayers for that ambulance to be there and be available. The only time we get revenue out of that is when they actually transport a patient to the hospital. So if they run on a call with the engine over here to Cheney Drive and it's a low acuity, medical call, they take care of the patient, they don't need to go to the hospital, they come back to the station, we get no revenue for that. We're not billing for that. It's just part of the service. So the only revenue we realize is when someone actually is transported to the hospital. So ambulances must remain available across the district to respond to 911 calls. And once again, transport fees do not cover the cost of maintaining that availability 24/7. What will the levy fund? We are going to hire 2 additional firefighters out of that. And we are working, I talked earlier about goals coming out of what we did with the 35-cent levy. So when we look at our response areas, and we call this area here around Bonita and out and going up north, we call it our Central Battalion area. Irving Station, I talked about near the UGB, all the way out into Alvador. That's called our North Battalion area. And our South Battalion area is basically Crow Road, Lorraine Highway, Fox Hollow, Spencer Creek, Macbeth. That's all part of our South Battalion area. Our call volume over time has just continued to go up in our South Battalion area. Of the stations we have out there right now, we have 1 very active volunteer out there, 1. And so we have got to start working toward addressing that. When we look at it from our perspective of response, we cover that area. That 1 volunteer, fantastic, goes on a lot of calls, but they can't handle everything. They can't do it all by itself, not to mention it's not safe to have 1 person running any given call type by themselves. So during the 35-cent levy, our station 109, if you've ever driven by it on Spencer Creek out there, nice little station, very centrally located out in that area. There is no quick way to get out to that area from here or our Irving station. It's a slow road to get out there either way. And so we've got to start working toward addressing and getting a more reliant or resilient response model out there. And so we had a very small footprint out there, so we purchased some additional property with some of the money from our 35-cent levy. The trust that owned it is who deeded the one plot of land to actually Crow Valley Fire District way back in the day, so they could site a station there. We bought the remainder of that acreage from the trust. Gave us a great deal. There's all those stations down there, there was no infrastructure. And so they're pretty nice buildings, but they have no kitchens, they have no wells, there's no septic, so they don't have restrooms and showers. None of that. And so we have got to get the facility up to a point to where we can even start to think about having some staffing out there. And so that's one of the goals we're working toward. We purchased the property to give us the footprint to have a sanitation or septic system out there. We needed the spread. We put in a well, actually ended up with a very good well. We're about 38 gallons a minute on that well out there. So good water source. Now we're at that point of we want to establish some living quarters out there. We have a resident program. We have some residents at this station. We have some residents over in the Irving area. We want to expand our resident program and get some of these young folks, that are maybe going to school, part-time job. They're trying to get, EMT, paramedic, whatever it is, and get some residents that live out there and then respond to calls. If they're not at work or school, they're responding on calls in that area. Just for the safety of the community and to give that one volunteer some assistance out in that area or quicker assistance out in that area. And so call volumes have continued to go up. That South Battalion area, this last couple of years, 377 calls a year out there. And we've seen that go from years back was, 120, 140, 165. It has just continued to climb. So that's one of our other goals out of that. We want to get some living quarters out there. That's probably something we're not just going to take this big chunk of money and pay for it. We're probably going to finance that, probably. And we have venues to do that. We're probably going to finance that over a number of years, so it's not this lump sum hit to the district. At the end of the day, we get so many revenues in, and we've got to balance that out in our budget every year. We got to pay for the people we have. We've got to pay for the goods, turnouts, and we got to pay the fuel bill, and the lights, and the dispatch bill. Our dispatch bill is probably going to be, we're predicting in our new budget we're working on right now, we're probably going to be in the $390,000 to $393,000 range for our dispatch and radio service bill this year. And so it is amazing. We vary across the 12 months of a budget year. We vary. Our monthly operating varies because we have some real high months and we have some lower months. But we vary anywhere from 650, 700,000 a month to as high as 850,000 a month just to keep this operation going, paying all the bills. So what will a levy cost? 55 cents per thousand of assessed value. Mind you, right now, everyone's been paying the 35. So 55 cents would be on a home assessed value of 250,000, equates to about another $11.46 a month in that 55-cent levy. Or about $4.16 per month, more than the current rate. So, yeah. If not approved, we will only have our permanent tax rate left. We won't have the 35 cents. It's expiring June 30, no matter what. So if our levy fails, we are back to just our base mill rate is all we will have. And then our board determines adjustments to staffing, services, and operations. And then we're forecasting right now, if we fail in May and lose the entire levy and we're back to our base mill rate, we're probably going to cut up to an additional 8 positions here. Yeah.
And that would be throughout the district or throughout the whole.
It's going to be throughout the
Yeah.
district. Yeah.
And that will leave how many money will be left then?
Ooh.
That we just did that.
We were sitting here looking at the budget all day. Our base mill rate, we anticipate to bring it up. I think it is just under $7 million.
So how many?
Employees.
How many employees?
Left?
Oh, employees? 18.
18 for these 3 units,
Yes.
full staff.
Yeah, 18.
And that includes a business manager who's not a,
Yeah.
the person who pays the bills.
We have a full-time business manager who handles our books, payroll, PERS,
That
all that
counts,
stuff.
that person.
She's kind of the hub of the operation that holds us all together, so. So we're asking voters, vote in our fire marshal.
19,
Yeah.
so.
Yep,
18 now.
we've had to have a fire marshal for years. We've got so many businesses, across our district between, you know, the Bonita area, the Irving area. The annual inspections that we have to do, fire code regulation, all these things, we have to have a full-time fire marshal. If we don't, we probably almost may well close the doors, because the state is not gonna let have a deputy fire marshal. They're not gonna do all the work. Somebody's got to do that work, and it is the fire district's job to do it, so. So we're asking voters for help, on measure 20-378. Election is on May 19th, and, another questions came up. There is no local voters pamphlet this year. You probably got a voters pamphlet in the mail. And this is what I was told by the county when I asked about it, when I filed our measure paperwork. The county told me that they alternate with the state. And so this election, it's the state's turn. The state did the voters pamphlet, and the state does not put local measures in the state voters pamphlet. So there is no county voters pamphlet this go around. Now, I've had a couple of folks inquire about that. I got a voters pamphlet, you're not in it. Problem. It's because the state doesn't allow local measures, and they're the ones that did the voters pamphlet this year. So if it is approved, it's gonna support improved response times, and enhance our ability to respond to multiple emergencies at once. If anybody's been driving around town here in Bonita, this area here is, you gotta, if the call goes off and the engine starts rolling out, everybody's kind of on pins and needles, because the tones are probably gonna go off again. There's gonna be a second call. It's gonna happen. It happens all the time. So we get a lot of back-to-back emergency calls. I've seen this at times here in the Bonita area, you know, like out to Notai, up to Franklin, and have 5 emergencies running all at one time. So our folks do a great job. Our folks work hard. And as I said, every bit of that money, every bit of your money that you pay into the fire district is going right back in to the service to provide to you, every bit of it. Obviously, QR code, if you have more questions, I believe that takes you to our webpage. Yep, take you to our webpage, information about the levy. We try to put as much stuff up there as we can. We're posting on Facebook all the time. We have monthly board meetings. We meet, our board meets this 3rd Tuesday of every month at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. And we alternate those meetings. We have 2 meetings here, and then we also contractually provide the service to Santa Clara Fire District. We've been doing that since 2018. And so when I meet with my board, I meet with 10 people, because I meet with my Lane Fire Authority board, and I meet with the Santa Clara Board of Directors. Santa Clara still owns all their stations, their equipment, but they don't have any volunteers, and have paid staff. That all comes through the contract with Lane Fire Authority, so.
Sharing administrative positions.
Yeah, we take care of all the administrative stuff, for Santa Clara Fire District, all that. Yeah.
Okay, so. You just added another layer to.
Yep.
These few people that are gonna be left if this doesn't pass. Not only are they gonna be having to man these 3 stations, but they
We-
also will
we
be doing
cover-
that station too.
We cover the Santa Clara area out of our Irving station. That's the bulk of it right there. And then also we have a very comprehensive auto aid agreement with Eugene Springfield Fire Department in that area. And if anybody's ever followed that over the years, and ever since I started with the district, annexation is a constant thing over in that area. And so our district in that area properties in that area, Santa Clara's properties, just continue to shrink over time. The city is, just constantly annexing rural or residential properties, businesses, those kinds of things. And so our footprint over time is shrinking over there.
Mm,
But we have a very comprehensive auto aid agreement with Eugene Springfield, like the Santa Clara area. We have, we have, we have designed an auto aid agreement that really kind of splits the area in half, because Station 11 that's over there by Santa Clara Square and all that, they cover not only their properties, they cover a significant amount of Santa Clara properties there as well. Once again, it is that philosophy or that premise of who's the closest, who needs help. So that's really what it's about. I've never been a boundaries and a sandbox guy.
mm,
Us, Junction City, Santa Clara, Mohawk, McKenzie, Lorraine, South Lane, we're all doing the same job. We're just out there serving taxpayers. And so it really, in the end of the day, it does, but lines mean nothing to me. If the
Every
neighbors
district
need
in the
help-
world has the boundary problems.
Yeah, if a taxpayer needs help, it could be a Junction City taxpayer, it could be a Lane Fire Authority taxpayer.
Closest available resource.
Yeah, exactly. So.
You, you mentioned something I didn't quite understand. We're new to the area. We came
Uh-huh.
up to California. We just moved here
Welcome.
4 or 5 months ago. Thank you. You talked about assessed values, and it sounded like you said there was a cap on that.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Oh, hang on. You want to take that one?
As best you can. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can explain it. Thanks for asking a very complex question. We're happy to do our best. Even up until this year, I think we are still learning things on how the county and the state assesses things. So, in between 1990 and 1997, there was some state legislation that passed Measure 5 in 1990, and then Measure 47, and then that was replaced by Measure 50 the next year, because the Measure 47 was a little bit ambiguous, so it's been replaced. It did a couple things. One, it set the base mill rate. So they said essentially whatever you were at that time, they said, that's it, that's what you get. So for us, that's $2.04.
When you say base mill rate, what does that mean? Mill rate?
So $2.04 is what our base mill rate, I don't know where the term comes from, mill rate, but
The permanent tax.
the
rate.
permanent tax
Okay,
rate.
it's the.
It's vernacular, yeah,
Okay.
it's the permanent tax rate. So $2.04 per thousand is what we are. And so per thousand of assessed value. And then additional measures came in and said, not only is that your permanent rate, but the assessed value on those homes cannot raise by more than 3% per year.
mhm.
There's also some additional stuff in there about compression. So all the taxing districts cannot exceed more than, I believe it's $10 per thousand, except for the school districts,
Starting at the time of that measure.
starting at the time of that measure.
So
Yes.
whatever your house was assessed at that time, it could not go up more than 3% per year.
Correct.
Which is
Which-
why we see, and I talked about the mean value of the area. And so a new home goes in, could be a $700,000 home. The assessed value the county is gonna put on that, it's not gonna be real market.
Yeah.
What they paid for it or what they're buying it for, it is gonna be the mean of the area around it.
Yeah, so that takes it a step further where when you have a brand new house built, one would assume that, well, it's gonna be assessed at what its current value is, and then it only goes up 3% a year. That's not true, because the county uses area valuation. So they take the mean for the county, and they say a similar sized home
Yeah.
is only 230, so your brand new
Yeah.
home is also gonna get that.
That's your comment, chief, in that people don't quite understand the
Yeah.
full or not so full ramifications of.
We struggle to understand it all. We live it and breathe it times.
You might wanna, one of you might wanna discuss the impact of the urban renewal district beneath it as well, because it has a.
Oh,
it has
really?
another factor.
Yes, so an urban renewal district, for folks who aren't familiar, just kind of explain that a little bit. An urban renewal district is something that cities can put in place, and it's essentially to prevent blight within the city. So they look at an area and say, oh my gosh, our downtown, it's crumbling, there's not good lighting, nobody wants to walk here, businesses are gonna run away, and that's not good for your city. So urban renewal districts are put in place. They have to have a plan. What projects are we gonna do? We're gonna fix X street, we're gonna fix lighting, we're gonna add a park, so they develop their projects. And it's over a period of time, and then they outline a area of the city. So I believe it can't exceed 25% of your city geographically. And then you have bare land in that area that they outline to develop. And so what urban renewal does is they put in some infrastructure. So here in Veneta, for example, they've put in order to expand housing, they've had to add water systems. So urban renewal helps pay for the infrastructure, which then allows building. How they fund that though is that once the building comes in, say they put in, 40 new homes because we have new water system, the amount of taxes the fire district is frozen at what that property was pre-build, and then the amount of money that it's worth post-build, that gets diverted from all the entities, the city general funds, taxes, the fire districts, the school districts, the library district, and it gets diverted to the urban renewal district.
Diverted, I like to
Diverted.
call robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Well, I mean, I understand
Sure,
the concept of an urban renewal district in the city, and the city be able to, make improvements. And there's been an urban renewal here in Benita for years, and we have a very good working relationship with the city. We talk about that all the time. They say it's going to sunset at some point. They're gonna reach the end of it, their projects, all those things, it's going to sunset. But I understand the need of a city to establish something like that so they can make improvements. Likewise, urban renewal, we're losing, I think about right now, $145,000 to $150,000 a year to the urban renewal district.
annual,
Which we look at that, and that's rescue equipment, that's almost a full-time employee on a fire engine for us. But it is gonna bring growth, it's gonna bring expansion to the city, it's gonna do all those things.
and there are some benefits to the fire district that comes with that, water systems possibly, or.
And when it's
Expansion,
when it
growth.
sunsets, the theory being that if they had not put in that infrastructure, the growth wouldn't have occurred, and then we would never realize those revenues. They are long though, so sometimes it's hard to see out and go 30 years,
Oh, yeah.
but eventually they are set to
It's
sunset.
just it's also another example of that when more development comes in to urban areas, it's not contributing what you think to the revenue district.
Yeah.
It's just,
All the new homes, like all the new homes going in across from Fine Mart over there, all that's all in urban renewal
Wow.
over there.
And there's also a business, in their business, what's it called? Where the
Industrial zone,
well, basically, yeah, but it's
An
called
enterprise.
enterprise zone, yeah.
Yes, it's all
In that area also, so some of the, like the storage place over there, I think that's in that area, the new RV place, and so we're not getting anything from them.
they get rated differently, nothing at all for that.
I don't
I'm
think
not
so.
as,
I was
I'm
familiar with the
not
urban
familiar with
section.
enterprise. From my understanding is there's some agreements to not pay taxes for a certain number of years, I believe.
incentivize.
Enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To bring people.
so, and I don't know the exact for this area, what the enterprise zone.
But a
what
lot of
they
that area off
do,
of Jeans
but-
Road is classified as that.
Yeah.
Is there an online question?
At this time, there are no online questions.
So if you have a question online and you wanna throw it in the chat. feel free.
Any other questions? That's a good question, by the way, Tim.
Gail, you mentioned earlier that 80% of your calls are medical. And I understand you have 2.5 ambulances to cover that area, which is, if I recall, over 400 square miles.
140 square miles.
Can you explain what 2.5 ambulances mean?
2.5 ambulances. So at our Franklin station, that ambulance or ALS transport unit, as we call it, that medic there is there 24/7, 365. It is staffed year round, every day. Our other full-time ambulance is at the Irving station. And then we also have what we call a day car. We did have a day car here as well. Those are peak hour cars. And so we get the gauge on when's the busy time during the week. Our peak hour or day car ambulance over at Station 115, it runs Tuesday through Friday from
10 p.m.
10 to 8 p.m. 10 to 8 p.m. is what it runs. So it's kind of our peak period in there, which helps take a load off of our Franklin station, the other medic at the station over there. And our ambulance service area, the district is 282 square miles. Our ambulance service area is 440. And so our ambulances not only respond to a significant portion of our district, they also respond to all of Lake Creek Fire District out to the west of Low Pass. All of Junction City Fire District to the north, a little bit of Monroe Fire District that's actually mostly up in Benton County, but there's a little piece of Monroe Fire District that tucks over into Lane County. That is also in our ambulance service area. And then Harrisburg, the city of Harrisburg proper is within our ambulance.
Is that by contract?
That is by assignment through the county.
Oh,
Yes, that is by assignment. Basically, that is handed down from the state. The state said years ago, basically handed that down to all counties, and they said you are responsible for ambulance service areas in your county, and every inch of your county will be covered by an ambulance service. So our ambulance service area goes clear out no man's land in the Coast Range out here, where we butt up against Western Lane Ambulance out of Florence. And then not all of our district is in our ambulance service area. I talked about the South Battalion area over there. A significant portion of that South Battalion area, that's Eugene's ambulance service area. So like Station 10 on Bailey Hill, Medic 10, that's closer medic. And so it responds to that area. That's their ambulance service area out there. So does that kind of answer the
To
question?
answer the question, I have a follow-up. So that sounds pretty thin to me. If we don't pass the levy, where's that gonna go?
Yeah.
If we don't pass the levy. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we are a fire district and we have a responsibility to our taxpayers. And so we are gonna have to walk the fine line of balance between, do we keep ambulance service? Do we reduce the amount of units we have now? Do we just go back to just staffing at whatever capacity we can, just fire trucks to respond to calls in our district? And so we haven't exactly nailed that down yet. But if our levy doesn't pass, we will be, and I have no doubt it's going to be a question of my board of directors and go, why are we still providing ambulance service when we've had to cut all these people? And it takes, takes significant staff to staff all those ambulances to respond to that large area. And if most of our people are out doing that, who's covering the fire district? And so, once again, we're responsible to our taxpayers. So
One thing too, to keep in mind for folks who live here in Veneta is that by the county code, which is where the ambulance service plan lives, is in county code. An ambulance service provider has 45 minutes to get to Veneta. So our ambulances are much closer than that. We November election, we did have an ambulance during the busiest hours out of this station. So we were able to run. That one was shut down due to the levy failure, and as chief won't rehash it because he already talked about it, but just some folks that left for other job opportunities and we didn't want to hire back and then have to lay them off. Our goal would be to put that back in place should the levy pass. And then we do have an ambulance with that shutting down. We have another ambulance about 8 to 10 minutes station from here if they're in quarters. So that's a big difference. So just realizing that if somebody else picked up the ambulance service and said, we'll do it, technically they have 45 minutes to get out here. And so that doesn't mean someone else is going to pick it up and put an ambulance here in town.
no, they would have to readjust their posting locations.
Yeah.
Question. And this, you and I are very much similar. I only had 25 years.
you don't have to quite have the haircut.
You talked about creative funding, and this has been a topic in the fire service forever. Frequent flyers.
Yep.
You know, do you start finding tactful ways to require funding from, or let's just say it, pay for your service, so to speak, and that's been in the service quite often, especially in California. We used to hear it a lot,
Yeah.
especially in the small districts where we were from.
Yeah. You want to field it?
Oh, yeah, there was multiple part question there for sure, and I don't have maybe as many numbers as I would need for the ambulance service area. So
And I
we are,
don't just mean ambulance services either.
yeah, so we are in the process now. The county has identified the ambulance service funding as a critical issue. And so we have a county-wide task force that involves Eugene City Council, Lane County Commissioners, all the ambulance service providers in the county, as well as other handful of interested parties, I
Yeah.
guess, let's put it that way, not having a list in front of me. And so we are attending that, and that's a big question we're asking.
Sure.
We're trying to get data across the board, compare apples to apples, and say, what do we need to do to fund this? Because an identified issue is that our billing covers the cost of the transport, but there is nobody covering the cost of having an ambulance available.
Right.
And the reality is, in an ambulance service, if you go to a restaurant, right, and you staff your wait staff, and if too many patrons show up, you go, it's gonna be an hour, and they wait for dinner.
Yeah.
When you call 911 and you want an ambulance, you probably aren't okay with saying, somebody got to them first, and so I'm gonna wait an hour. So there's this concept in the ambulance business in which you actually need to have an ambulance sitting available about 70% of the time to meet the community's needs.
Yeah.
If it's busier than that, it kind of means that somebody's not going to get an ambulance when they need it. So we look at that total time they're busy. And so then the question becomes, well, who's paying for that 70% of the time for the ambulance to be available? And the answer is, it's not actually. And so that's one, we're looking through that funding through the county and saying, what can we do? We don't have any answers yet, but it's been identified, and we're working our way through that task force. Second thing about kind of people who utilize the system more or call, that's a big discussion across the state for sure. EMS roundtables, we discussed that. The biggest thing kind of to know about that, I would say, is the majority of people that call 911 for us are having medical emergencies.
Sure.
Everybody's definition's a little bit different. And sometimes as providers, it's hard to really gauge because we see the worst of the worst. So sometimes when we're seeing not the worst of the worst, we're like, oh, is this really need an ambulance? But the statistics show actually it did. So there are some clever things people are doing that we're looking at with folks who do call quite often that maybe don't need the service, and what can we do with those. Community paramedicine, often the problem is those people do need help and the
Yeah.
system has failed them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of departments, fire departments doing some really unique things, which is great. Most of those things require funding.
Yeah.
And so when you're trying to figure out how to staff your emergency services, it does make it hard to get into some of those more unique situations and start funding a community paramedic, because there's no way to charge for that right now, you know. So some of those things we're definitely keep up on looking at. They're not 100% of our top priority just because we know it's not going to solve the funding
It'd be
issues.
great if public health could fund a position that could be available for the folks that have those needs that really maybe wouldn't necessarily require a 911.
Yeah, and public health did just start funding through, I think, a House bill and some grants, a crisis intervention unit that we're seeing to start to be utilized more.
Yeah, yeah.
Getting that going, takes a little time, and they obviously usually start in the epicenter, which is the city and the metro. It's, but we do call them, and we have seen that help and get people diverted to maybe more appropriate care for mental health crises and stuff.
You're doing such a great job. You want to talk about reimbursement for ambulance service?
I don't have enough water. Get me some water.
Talk about ambulance
How bad did the levy fail last time?
I think it was like a little over 45% yes to like 50, almost 55% no.
What'd you need, 51?
50 plus. And it was, I think voter turnout across our entire district was 6,000 people. So it was a very,
Pretty light.
I think for the whole
pretty
county, it
light
was like 20%.
yeah, it was basically 20% of our electorate out there turned out and voted. Granted, in November, we were the only thing on the ballot in the fire district. That was it. It was just us. And so there was nothing big going on. There's no pamphlet, there's no none of that. I think a lot of people got there. Some people got their ballot and said, well, they didn't even open it. They didn't think there was anything to vote on, so they didn't. It was not a huge margin, but definitely a failure.
So what's the plan for changing that
Changing our,
to make it a win this time?
well, I'll tell you what, there has been a lot of campaigning. You're gonna see signs around in yards. Door to door work. Obviously, the district is not doing that. There is a political action committee that is formed. And so we just sent a letter. Did you get a letter from me? Letter from the fire chief in the mail? Yep. Things like that going out. Facebook, you name it. We're trying to share it everywhere we can and share the information. We have a town hall going at Lavelle Vineyard
I
tomorrow.
was gonna say, are you buying everybody a glass of wine?
Oh, God.
I couldn't get a ticket.
Probably.
Please come.
It was, can you still come?
Yeah.
Okay, because there's the music first, right? Or are you guys after the, because it says to go on your webpage or your
Just kind of a
Facebook
get together.
and sign up with Eventbrite, but it said sold out.
And
I know it's free.
it did sell out, but please come.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
6 o'clock.
Just show up.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna kick you out of there. Yeah.
Especially wearing this, right? Sorry.
Did you want to talk about transport reimbursement a little bit?
Yeah.
I think it's just good to know.
Yeah, I think transport reimbursement's good. Real quick, no
No
questions online?
No questions online.
What about you two? Are you
Guys, did you on YouTube? I
Okay.
have not seen anything.
Yes, ambulance transport revenue, so, that's also something I think that can get, so we already talked about that it really covers kind of the transport. I maybe overstated that a little bit, but it doesn't cover the cost of having those ambulances available. So when you see what we bill and you see what we bill for ambulance transport, we do not receive the revenue that we bill. So on average, we see about 28 to 29% of what we bill. And the majority of that is due to caps on Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement. So we transport about 66% of our transports are either Medicare or Medicaid. And as a Medicare, Medicaid provider, when Medicare reform happened, there was a cap that said, this is how much you get, and then you cannot turn around and balance bill that Medicare, Medicaid patient. They might get a bill for their cost share, so it's not that Medicare, Medicaid doesn't get any bill, but if we bill $1,000 and Medicare reimburses about 40 cents on the dollar, so let's say we billed $1,000, we get $400. We can't turn around and bill $600 to the patient. We're not allowed
Can you
to.
can you go with supplemental also?
We can bill
Medicare and
supplemental,
Okay.
but anything that's not paid and it's a Medicare, Medicaid patient, you cannot bill the
You eat
patient.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, now if they have a little bit of a cost share, $50 or $100, that can be billed to them, but yeah, so that's why our reimbursements are 29 to 30%. Medicaid is even lower than Medicare reimbursement. And there's a little bit of variable, it's quite complex with, are you rural, are you super rural? There's a little bonus for that and stuff. But overall, we collect 28 to 29% of what we bill. And then of course you have, uncollected people who just don't pay. We also have, fire med write-offs. So those patients who do have fire med, will bill their insurance, we get what we get, and then we write everything else off. So that kind of gets us down to that 29, 23.
Is that percentage mandated or if not, why haven't you risen that percentage?
The amount that we bill or the amount that
Yeah.
we're reimbursed?
No,
Well,
the reimbursement.
the reimbursement, you don't have a choice
No,
there.
We do not have a choice.
I guess the amount you would bill. Is that mandated?
It is not. So recently Oregon passed a bill, and forgive me, I don't remember the House bill number 40. I don't know. I wouldn't even try. But it's a balance billing. And so it actually, did some really good things for commercial insurance carriers in Oregon. Lots of commercial insurance were classifying ambulance service as out of network. Well, nobody gets a choice on what, we're not in network for anybody. And so this actually mandated that commercial insurance count all ambulance services as in network. It also required us to provide a fee schedule to the state so that the state has the fee schedule of each ambulance provider. And then it means we cannot balance bill commercial patients more than their cost share. So if their insurance says they only pay 20%, we can't bill them more than 20%. In theory, their insurance should be paying us the 80% though. So the kinks are still getting worked out on that. That is brand new as of January 2026. So we're still working on that. As far as our fee goes, we can raise our fees, and we last raised our fees in 2022, I believe. And so we reevaluate them every so often. One thing about being a special district and a public agency is we can't technically charge people to make money. We can only charge the
Right.
costs that recover, right? So
We
when
were a special district.
yeah, so when we change our fees and we look at that, we are required to provide the board with a fee analysis to show that what we're charging is true recovery and that we're not, so we can't just go out and say, we're gonna charge everybody $6,000 for a transport. We have to show that it's actually realistic. So we routinely do that. We recently did our fee analysis and so that will be presented here, in the next few meetings, and then we'll analyze what we're charging, because we do want to keep pace with what it's costing us.
Sure.
When you only get reimbursed a certain percentage, unfortunately, you can't make that up with way overcharging. So you can't say, well, we only get 30%, so now we're gonna charge 12,000 for an ambulance transport, because they're gonna say that's not cost recovery. It doesn't cost you that much to run that transport. So that's where we kind of get limited being a public agency in that, but it is definitely something we look and keep up on.
Thank you. Any other question?
It's unfortunate there isn't more interest here.
Yeah. As we look across the state, Rose talked about it, ambulance transport, it's not just here in Lane County. It's Eastern Oregon, it's everywhere. The state is even starting to pick their head up and look at it, across the state. I know there's Rose talked about the transport funding task force going here in Lane County. I think the state is part of one over in, Umatilla and Grant and a bunch of counties over east, kind of the same thing, really remote rural areas. The state is working on them over there with ambulance transport. And then if we look at special fire districts across the state, I believe, and Rose has put it, we're on the precipice of crisis when it comes to special fire district funding. It's not just us. There are many districts that are on this May ballot across the state that are either trying to put levies in place, they're trying to renew levies, they're trying to renew levies with increases. I don't know what the good answer is. We talk about it all the time. We hate coming to our taxpayers and asking for more money, but yet it's vital that we provide the service to our taxpayers. We know what that means on the street. I think it's becoming a crisis across the state. So,
Absolutely.
and we, Lane Fire Authority, we're coming to our taxpayers asking for some additional money. We want to keep the operation going. We need more people. I mean, if I had my druthers, I'd hire 10 more people and staff more station, and do it. We can't afford that. There's no way we can afford that. We aren't going to fix the taxing structure. Lane Fire Authority is not going to fix it. It is going to have to be done above us, above our board of directors. It's going to have to happen at the legislature. That's where it's going to have to happen. Or we got to find a whole different type model to run and fund to keep it going.
Well, you talk about the lifeblood, the volunteers. Look at what they've done to them. They're required so much every year, more and more and more.
yeah.
To keep your certifications. It's, you don't see the lifers anymore.
Yeah.
Doing volunteer. That's a lot of work.
It is a ton of,
25 years and that, I'm surprised I'm not like you.
Yeah.
It's getting involved up there.
yeah, it's a huge.
No, it's a lot of, to retain volunteers.
Yeah, it's a huge commitment,
Yeah.
especially now. When I talked about, I started way out, rural end of the district in 1979. And the demographics of our communities have changed so much. When I started back in the day, it was probably dad went to work every day, mom stayed home with the kids, put them on the bus. And we saw that dwindle in our community, and pretty soon now mom's got to get a job. We got to get, because they're taxing us more. And so mom's got to get a job. Now you're looking at two-wage earner households, and then more sports, and things like that. And we got to get the kids to college. And we have watched over time, we've watched those volunteer numbers go down. It is such a commitment, to be a volunteer, and when you're a two-wage earner household and all these other things, going on, it's a huge undertaking. Yeah.
Real quick, feel free to stay around. I'm just wanted to thank everybody online. We're gonna end our online stream as long as no other online questions are, okay, our online folks are awesome. So thank you for those of you who tuned in.
Oh,